Hello and welcome to Deakin's Virtual Open Day. I'm Kelly Tobin, Course Director of the Master of Applied Learning and Teaching, and today I'm joined by Matthew Thomas, Course Director, Master of Teaching Secondary, and Jill Lachlan, Master of Teaching, Course Director Primary. We're thrilled to have you with us as we chat about our courses today. We'll also be hosting a live Q&A session straight after this presentation where we'll have the opportunity to answer any questions you might have. We're going to move on now to the Welcome to Country. Deakin would like to recognise the various traditional lands on which our campuses are located. We acknowledge the land, waterways and airways of the Kulin Nation and the Gunditjmara peoples. We acknowledge the elders past, present and emerging of all the lands on which we work, study and live, and we pay our respects to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples.
So welcome to Open Day. We've got a huge suite of courses available for you at the master's level. So there's lots of different ways in which you can become a teacher. There is the Masters of Applied Learning and Teaching Secondary, or the MALT. There's E761, the Master of Teaching for Early Childhood, E762, Master of Teaching Primary, E763, the Master of Teaching Secondary. And there's also combination courses like Primary and Early Childhood, or primary and secondary. There's a whole range there that you can choose from, and there's different reasons why you might take one of each, but we'll talk more about that later. So your future in teaching. Deakin is ranked among the top 5 universities in Australia for its education courses. And one of the reasons for that is we have a student-first approach. Our academic staff are some of the highest ranked globally. We have high interaction in our classrooms, and we're ranked consistently #1 in student satisfaction for 8 years running, according to the Australian Graduate Survey. Our graduate teachers are also highly employable, with many of them now working as leading teachers in schools and out there. In fact, when you graduate and as you're going through the course, you'll likely be working alongside other Deakin graduates.
I'm here to talk to you today about the Master of Applied Learning and Teaching Secondary. It's one of our postgrad courses, and the duration is 1.5 years, taken over a full-time or 4 consecutive trimesters. We do have a compulsory trimester 3, and that's what enables you to complete the course over 1.5 years. There's also the opportunity to undertake it in a part-time mode as well. It's a flexible course, and we operate in an online teaching mode, but we also have campus-based intensives where students attend face-to-face at Warn Ponds. The prerequisites for the MALT course are a bachelor degree, and there are also the initial teacher education requirements that include the CASPER test and the equivalent of curriculum areas, and 2 of those that come from your undergraduate degree. In terms of the Master of Applied Learning and Teaching, it also enables you to work in various school settings. So yes, we're predominantly a secondary school qualification, but having said that, we also offer VCAL as an opportunity, and there's also the option to undertake Cert 4 in assessment and teaching, where we do have a number of students that go on to work in TAFE settings as well. It's a student-first approach, and Deakin, as Matt had already spoke about, is ranked #1 in student satisfaction for 10 years running. In terms of the graduate employment opportunities for the MALT, we have students teach in various fields, and there are a number of our students that have gone on, predominantly most track into work in secondary schools, but there are a number of educational settings where our students do ultimately end up, and that varies from VCAL settings to TAFE sector, but we also have outside educational opportunities. We do have a number of outdoor ed students who end up in places like the Alpine School and various educational settings as well. Professional experience is a large component of our MALT course as well, where students undertake 75 days professional experience in various school settings. So not only is it in a component of that teaching, professional experience teaching allotment is in the secondary sector, There is also an alternate placement block of 15 days where you can pick one of those other settings I've just talked about, whether that be a TAFE sector, an alternate educational setting, or a VCAL classroom. So there are a few opportunities with professional experience. It does have a very applied learning focus where you engage critically with teaching practice. There's the traditional focus on your teaching specialist areas or your methods, but we do have a number of units that really look at that applied nature of teaching and learning as well. Thanks.
I think I might have to come and do your course.
You can see now up on the slide that the curriculum areas, or as Vit will call them, your specialist teaching areas. And these are some of if you think traditionally about a secondary school setting, these are some of the areas in which you can teach. And I think it's worth noting in there that VCAL is an opportunity as well. And we do have a number of students that track into the MALT or choose the MALT because of the vet sector and their opportunities to teach in that area as well. But you come with your undergraduate degree with these areas, and they become your specialisation in the MALT as well as the applied learning area.
Should we have a look at the MTeach Centre?
Yeah, great.
Indeed. Okay, so across the Masters of Teaching courses, there are most of the courses, all of the courses, in fact, will take you 2 years to complete, but you can do them either online or on campus. So you can see there the great range of courses that we've got available from early childhood through to secondary options. There's a great deal of difference between each of the courses, but the major differences between them are between even the MALT and early childhood is how much time you might spend in schools, your areas of specialisation, things like that. But the consistent thing across all of the courses is going to be that all students are going to need to do the CASPER test. Everyone needs some form of prior study, and it'll be about what you then specialise in as you're moving through the course.
So that undergraduate course really does matter, doesn't it, in terms of what you can apply for?
Absolutely matters. But so on the point of enrolment or applying to enrol, you'd be assessed by our Deakin team, and they would look at your transcript, your undergraduate transcript, and they go, that's going to mean this for you when you come into the course. So going into the MALT or going into the Master Teaching Secondary or going into the Master Teaching Primary, a lot of those choices or options would be presented to you. So that will open up what pathways you've got available to you.
What about, I've done a science degree, but I actually really want to teach drama and I've got a lot of experience in community theatre. Would I be able to do that in the secondary course?
In the Master of Teaching Secondary, despite your passion for drama, with a science degree behind you, if you don't have the requisite methods to be able to get in, because you'd need majors and minors, unfortunately we wouldn't be able to let you in. However, once you were set up and did have a job in a school, the principal might be able to put you in front of a classroom, and you could say, look, I have a passion to teach drama, and you would have that opportunity to pursue it in that way. But in terms of your formal qualifications, you would still need to go through based on your undergraduate transcript.
So checking out the specialist area guidelines at BIT website is going to be really important.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And students can actually do that prior to, looking further into each of our courses as well. They can actually jump online and have a look at those.
Well, I do have some really good news for people who maybe are thinking that they don't have that kind of deep background knowledge in the method areas that we're talking about. And that's for people who might be considering coming into primary. So with primary, what we're looking for is, as a primary teacher, you need to be able to teach all of the learning areas. So when you look at the national curriculum, we have 8 learning areas, and if you have a degree that's covering a great scope of different things in your undergraduate study, then that might actually make you a really good candidate for teaching primary. And I know that, sometimes things like marketing degrees don't fit nicely into applying for a secondary methods course, but they're actually really great people for teaching primary. There's so many great skills that come through from a marketing course that are good for becoming a primary school teacher.
Hang on, wait a minute, Jill. Are you telling me that although my marketing degree might not set me up to go and teach, say, English in a high school, I could go and end up, say, teaching science to grade 4s?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great.
Right?
So I don't need to worry about not being an expert in technology and maths.
No, and it's about that breadth. It's having that breadth of knowledge that you can take into the primary school. It's about being agile in this kind of content and background that you've got. You will have to have one subject that you've got a minor in. And the reason why is because our primary teachers now have to have a specialisation. So going back to that marketing degree, you probably find most people that have done a marketing degree, they've got things like report writing, communications units, understanding advertising languages. When we look at some of those units put together, that's actually 4 units or more that fit our English literacy learning area. When you look at the national curriculum, it fits really well. So that person would be a really good person to have a specialisation in literacy, because they understand language used in multiple ways. And multi-literacies and digital literacies, and that from a degree like that. So they're really fantastic people to have working in the primary area. And there's lots of areas that are like that, where you might think, I don't quite fit secondary, but have a look at the primary courses, because you just might be the perfect candidate for primary. Plus, we're about to have a shortage of teachers primary in Victoria. Great time to apply. Oh, look at all those methods.
Oh yeah, you'd be hard pressed not to fit in.
Such a lot to think about there. So you have to have 2, right, Matt?
That's right, 2 method areas.
And that's the same for the dual strand degree as well. Yeah?
Yeah.
Right. So we do have some really interesting options there, though, for people that maybe have done a degree in music, and that's the only undergraduate degree that they've done. Because we actually need music teachers, we have a double music option. So there's a few subjects like that, mostly in the arts, but also in maths and humanities, where we can actually cater for somebody who has what would normally might look to the lay person as being a single method undergraduate degree, but we can actually have a look at that and perhaps help you out with that. So there's lots of different combinations there, but it's got to be about that content that you have in your undergraduate, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Our questions most asked. So how much study is involved in this postgraduate qualification, Kelly?
Well, it's a hard one to answer, I think. I think they say like each unit is about 150 hours, isn't it? Yeah, but it varies depending the cloud learning to online, and obviously whether there's intensives as well. What about yours, Matt?
So for me, I always break things down into like, okay, what can I manage now? Like in all of the units, and I'm sure it's the same in the mock, Kelly. It's the equivalent of 5,000 words per unit. So, and that might be we'd like you to make a small video, and we'd like you to maybe create a podcast for someone from the class, or we'd like you to write a 2,000 word essay. So for every unit you do, and in most cases there's 16 units would make up a master's, you're going to do, so for every single unit, there's 5,000 words worth of work. If you're full-time, you're going to do 4 units for a trimester of study, which is about 3 or 4 months. So if you're very organized and you can manage your time, I think most people can stay on top of that. Can you do that in work? If you're very, very organized, I've absolutely seen people do it. Can you do it and balance a family and work? And it starts to get pretty tough, but I also know people who can do it. So,
and
it does. It really depends on the person, doesn't it? And
your support network.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
What your other work is outside of the university. We're very cognizant that people who coming into these courses have had substantial life experience before coming to us. So we know that there will be families and there'll be jobs that you may be career changes and all sorts of things that you're balancing. You just need to think very carefully about what's reasonable for you.
And I know that, oh, sorry. Yeah.
Sorry, I kind of leapt ahead there.
No, that's all right. I was just going to say that I know with the MALT, and I imagine it's very similar to the MTeach, is that we get a number of students that are career change, and often many of these students haven't studied for some time, and it's you know, I think from our end it's about supporting students returning to study as well and providing opportunities to, you know, Deakin I think has a number of supports in place for those students to ease them back. As much as we do throw you in the deep end, I think there is an element of easing you back into study, and particularly perhaps in an environment that's different to maybe when you did your undergrad degree. And there's a large, you know, element of our courses that are online at the moment, and you know, it's around providing supports for each of our students around, you know, in that space as well.
Yeah, absolutely. The difference between learning in the cloud and learning on campus. I guess that's a personal preference, isn't it? Whether you really feel that you need to be sitting in front of a teacher or whether you're happy on the cloud. And at the moment, let's face it, everybody's on the cloud.
Yes.
Everybody's learning online at the moment. So, you know, for a lot of people out there, it's probably going to be quite relaxing to come and join us in the cloud and study in the cloud.
Yeah. And I think either way, it's about setting... Sorry, I think either way it's just about setting up those collaborative spaces, isn't it, in the cloud or in situ, you know, if we have those opportunities.
I think one of the differences that we might have between our courses though is that all of our courses have a cloud only option. You guys don't do that, do you? You do cloud and
yes, we do now with our new version of the MALT. So we do have some that have intensive mode only, but we do have a number of that are a number of our units now that are just cloud based. So there have been changes there.
I guess the thing is that we no longer think about having fully face-to-face classes anymore, do we? You know, this is, you're either doing cloud only, in which case you never come on campus and you can study from pretty much anywhere in Australia, sometimes anywhere in the world, depending on what's going on. But even if you're a located student, where you're attending classes face-to-face, whether that's weekly or intensives or whatever that mode is, we engage in blended learning. So you're learning in the cloud and face-to-face, right? And that can be a little bit of a learning curve for people who are just used to the idea that they attend one lecture and one tutorial and then they go off and do their work. I think that last question there in the slides, you know, about curriculum and methods, we've kind of talked about that. So again, we'll just advise you to go off and have a look at the specialist area guidelines and then work out your decisions from there. And of course, quite happy to talk to you if you have questions about those sorts of things as well. Professional experience, the absolute bedrock of our courses. We've just got these amazing schools across the country that are willing to take pre-service teachers for professional experience, and having really good relationships across the country is a really important part of that process. So we've got this team of people in the professional experience office that place, what is it? Something like 7,000 students get placed every year from our Deakin professional experience office. They do all the work for you. They set up the relationship and they get that booked in for you to go and do. So you don't have to go and source those things yourself. You know, there's ways of you being able to tell us what some of your preferences are and what some of your specific needs are around placements as well. We've got more than 80 days of teaching practice in schools there. That's actually sort of technically not quite right. I think that applies to Kelly's course. So our secondary courses start at 60 days.
It goes all the way up to what is it, 120?
If you do an internship.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah, so there's huge array of offerings in the professional experience. What I would warn, and I know Matt will back me up on this, while the dual strand courses look really great because you're getting qualifications for 2 different sectors, you are also having to do many more days than a straight single strand course in the Master of Teaching. So again, you need to work out how you balance that in your own life. Trying to do 90 days might not seem like much, but when you're trying to do 90 days in 2 years and you've only got a certain amount of annual leave from whatever job you're working, and you've got kids and COVID kicks in and whatever, you might just find that you are better suited to a more simple and shorter frame in terms of the professional experience.
Absolutely. One of the key things there is that the ongoing communication with Deakin staff. So we have staff in school, staff at the university that will basically wrap around you to support you whilst you're on placement and ensure you're getting the most out of your placement, but also extending you so that every single time you go back into the school, you're going to be a better and better teacher. Now, that's fantastic for your growth and development for your course, but also to ensure that you're going to be still standing at the end of it, you need to make sure that you're doing the right thing for you. So as Jill was just saying, people lining up to do the combined, the dual strand courses, they're fantastic courses, but the trade-off for getting dual qualifications is you'll miss out on all the opportunities to specialise that you get with the single strand courses. So have a look through and see what it is that really appeals.
Understanding your commitment to professional experience and how you're going to balance that alongside study and family and work are really important choices that you need to make when you're coming into the course, and good conversations to have with us before you decide what it is you're going to apply for.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately you're making it's a 2-year plan across any of these courses. So it's a 2-year plan, and part of that is, okay, cool, I'm going to do the Masters of Teaching Secondary, as an example, and part of that includes 60 days of being in a school. And well, what does that look like? Well, you're basically saying you're going to go working full time. So what does family life look like when you're going to go work full time? Yeah, and that's about being sensible about how you manage everything.
So where do our graduates end up, Kelly?
Yes, good question. So in terms of the Master of Applied Learning and Teaching, and I mentioned this briefly before, we have a number in the VET sector, the VCAL classrooms in our secondary schools. You are qualified to teach in secondary schools and other youth settings, but we do have students in a varying range of youth learning contexts, and especially those with an applied learning or a vocational learning background. Good.
We're in COVID space here.
Yeah.
In the background. As for our Master of Teaching graduates, Matt?
Yep. So the graduates from many of the Master of Teaching courses can work in private, independent, or Department of Education schools. Many of our graduates are currently working as principals, leading teachers, experienced teachers out there. You might also find work in policy roles, government organisations, museums, all sorts of different...
you might even find a couple of our graduates will be teaching the new applicants coming in the course.
This is absolutely true. In 2018-19, 93.8% of Deakin education graduates were employed prior to completing their course, which is
pretty good number. Oh, the dreaded CASPER. Okay.
Not from the ghost.
Now, just as a way of backgrounding this, a few years ago there were some big studies done and reviews done of teacher education, and this was one of the recommendations that came through for all universities to put in place, which is a non-academic selection tool for initial teacher education. Different universities have chosen to do slightly different things depending on where you are, but what we can tell you about the CASPER tool is that 9 out of 11 universities in initial teacher education in Victoria chose the CASPER tool as the non-academic selection tool. So the beauty of that, and I hate to say it, is that even if you are applying for some other university out there in Victoria, you only have to pay the fee once, sit the test once, and that will can be information that gets shared to the different universities you apply for, if they are using this tool. And there are a number of them that are using the tool across the country as well. So that's something to think about when you're looking at applications. It's not too onerous. It's a video scenario package. So you've got 12 scenarios, and basically you get told what to do in each one, and you respond. It's timed. Your responses are timed, and it's all about just seeing your suitability for becoming a teacher. We're looking for those things like communication, teamwork, empathy, ethics, problem solving, and professionalism. So you do have to do the test no matter which course you are applying for in ITE at Deakin University. And you can go to that link and find out more about it. If you want to apply to our courses, you can apply through VTAC, but you can also apply directly to Deakin. So again, check out the websites, see when the dates are for applying, and we'd be happy to have those direct applications coming through. And you can actually apply directly for the Master of Teaching as well as the Master of Applied Learning and Teaching. So I guess that's really us. We're going to go into the Q&A next. Is that right, Kelly?
Yeah. So we just want to say thanks for joining us today. It's been great to see many of you interested in the Master of Applied Learning and Teaching and the Master of Teaching. And like Jill said, if you'd like to learn more, you can explore our virtual Open Day website, and you'll be encouraged to stick around for some questions in that section. There's a dog barking in the background.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining us.